Welcome to LUTV News InFocus, where we feature interesting topics on campus, in the community, and in the world of culture. I am Tommy Byers. For nearly 5 years, the devastating war between Russia and Ukraine has torn through Eastern Europe, leaving destruction and heartache in its wake. Renowned photojournalist Patrick Patterson has ventured to the front lines of this brutal struggle, capturing war's raw, unfiltered realities. He joins us in the studio to share the stories behind these harrowing images and discuss how you can experience the war through his lens, seeing the conflict in ways few ever do. Join us as we take a journey through the heart of war. You've traveled to the war in Ukraine, between Russia and Ukraine, several different times now. You were a photojournalist for a while now. What was that inspiration behind becoming a photojournalist?
I've always liked making photographs and telling stories. So for me, I think it was an opportunity to learn more about people, learn about community, and using the camera as a tool to discovery.
In learning about the community and the cultures of Ukraine, you actually traveled and lived there for a little while. Can you tell us about that experience?
Ukraine is a magical, beautiful country. The city of Kyiv might be one of the most beautiful cities that I've spent time in. From the Carpathian Mountains in Western Ukraine to the Eastern Steppe. Overall, for me, the Ukrainian culture within food and family is incredibly amazing.
You talk about family, you talk about the cultures, and there's still a family unit even though there's a conflict going on. How do you prepare yourself for what you expect to experience and what you actually do experience?
I think first knowing not to have set expectations of what's going to happen or who you're going to meet, where you're going to go. I think learning and understanding those things as they come to you. So working more organically. Before going to Ukraine, I had never stepped foot in Europe. So this was my first European trip, the first conflict and war that I've experienced or covered or documented. So for me, there was a combination of discovery just in the sense of travel. There was the component of experiencing war, and I think those two combined are still intertwined. So, my time in Kyiv could start on a day just going to a cafe and ordering sweets and coffee, and I would go to concerts, the Philharmonic. I'd hike, and those days can be interrupted rather quickly and unexpectedly in Kyiv. Traveling east to Kyiv along the Eastern Front, you expect to come across terrible things, but when I was in Kyiv, every time that it would happen, it would still come as a surprise because it was unexpected. Even though those circumstances continued to happen more frequently the longer I stayed there.
And one of your unexpected experiences while covering this conflict, you came in contact or close contact of a bomb or an explosion going off. How did that impact your time there?
Unfortunately, being in Ukraine during this time has its consequences. Certainly with PTSD, too many times to count how many times I've had missiles and drones fly over my home, or being in an area where we were being shelled with artillery.
And back home in the United States, we only experience the conflict from what we see on television, social media, or other technology platforms or social media platforms. How do you feel that the true perspective of the conflict is it being shown here in the United States, or what do you want the community to know about the conflict?
Well, certainly I think there's a need for improvement from mainstream media in how frequently they tell the story and what narrative they're sharing. So I think if we go back to the beginning of the war, when Bucha happened, where suburb of Kyiv, where Western countries, including the United States, saw images of citizens laying next to their bicycles with freshly painted fingernails, with sacks of potatoes. They responded in a way that generated humanitarian aid for Ukraine, support for Ukraine. And so when that narrative in the media shifts to just talking about the statistics of warfare, aid packages, and there's no humanization of that conflict, very quickly the audience starts to lose interest. But when we can convey a story and give a name to a face and paint a picture of really what's happening and humanize it, the response is different. And I think that that's what needs to happen in the mainstream media.
Absolutely. During your experience, what is something that you carry with you and has left a lasting impact?
I mean, I think almost every day in Ukraine has left a lasting impact on me. I just think about the impact war has on civilians, the impact that war has on entire communities and families. Even a couple weeks ago, an entire family was killed in a missile strike in Lviv, with only the father and husband surviving. And this story repeats itself every day in Ukraine. I had this experience in Izum shortly after Izum was liberated by Ukrainian defenders. I met a man named Misha who lost his entire family of 7 in a bombing.
That's awful. It's devastating because families are just trying, like you talked about earlier, going to theaters. They're just trying to experience everyday life, but they can't because of this conflict and war going on. And you've traveled back from Ukraine to here at Lamar University to display your art and your time in Ukraine. Can you tell the community about what they can experience during their time at the Dishman while your art is on display?
Sure. This body of work is an opportunity to continue telling the narratives of those that I spent time with in Ukraine. I feel a tremendous responsibility to share these stories that were shared with me. These are stories of people who have experienced the worst thing that they could ever experience in their entire lives. So it's an opportunity to come and learn an intimate, have an intimate experience with components and people from Ukraine in areas that I traveled.
And that's Friday night here at Lamar University in the Dishman at 6:30.
Correct. 6:30. Yep.
6:30. And it's free. The community can come out to it.
Absolutely.
Okay. That's good. For future journalists that come out Friday night to experience this, or just photojournalists overall, what do you want them to know about the importance of photojournalism? To tell the story and to challenge their editors and their publishers to tell that story, to do it in a way that is ethical and sensitive to the people that they're engaging with, they're coming across. Patrick, thank you for sharing your journey through the heart of war. Thank you for watching LUTV News in Focus. To see more content from LUTV News, follow us on X, Instagram, and like us on Facebook.